Hi, this is Dr. Kurt Wooler for Integrative Medicine Academy. The title of this short video is Glyphosate Exposure, Toxic Effects, and Sulfate Loss. So this material actually comes from a much larger course we have through Integrative Medicine Academy called Toxicity Mastery Course, where we talk about various environmental chemicals, including glyphosate. We'll also get into heavy metals, mold, mycotoxins, etc., and various strategies for dealing with these chemicals, as well as detoxification interventions. The website is Toxicity Mastery Course. You can email if you have any questions to toxicitymasterycourse@gmail.com. So we know that glyphosate is something that is sprayed, unfortunately, in our environment quite a bit, but it's used all over the world. Great Plains Laboratory has a glyphosate profile as a urine assessment. You can see in this particular test, the level is quite elevated. When we look at glyphosate from a chemical structure, it's a combination. We've got an amino group, a carboxylic, and then something called a phosphonic group. So it actually acts as an acid, has high solubility in water. And so as an acid, it gets bound as a salt. So it basically can be packaged and transported. And then again, it is dissolvable in water and will bond with water molecules as generally any salt will. But when we take it to a deeper level and start to understand some of the chemistry and how our body deals with these different compounds, we can look at what's going on in the liver. So we have phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is where we take things from a lipid-soluble form, and through oxidation, reduction, hydrolysis reactions, we start to convert them over into more water-soluble compounds. And this is the second half of phase 2 of liver detoxification, incorporates what's called sulfation and glutathione conjugation. And we can see we need a number of nutrients in order to help both phases, as well as the intermediary metabolite phase, where we can generate a lot of reactive oxygen intermediates. So that's always a vulnerable point for all of us, is that phase in between phase 1 and phase 2. But keep in mind here that sulfation plays a significant role in phase 2 liver detox. There's been much that has been written about the toxicity of glyphosate. Probably, no other author that studied this more is Dr. Stephanie Seneff, and she's written some great articles. This came out in 2013 in Modern Disease, looking at glyphosate suppression of cytochrome P450 enzymes. Now, I just shown you phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1 is primarily made up of P450 enzymes. So we know that glyphosate can act as an antibiotic. It basically can disrupt the gut bacteria, can lead to an overgrowth of pathogens like Clostridia bacteria. It can disrupt various enzyme pathways, including the P450 system, that ultimately could lead to impairments in bile flow. Okay, bile we need for fat digestion, fat-soluble water absorption, like vitamin D. So ultimately what ends up happening is you disrupt sulfate synthesis and transport, can disrupt phase 2 and ultimately phase 3 liver detox, which can compromise our digestive system. We can get damage to red blood cells. That can lead to anemia, toxicity due to free iron, for example. This actually can lead to hypoxia in some cases. Glyphosate can interfere with synthesis of certain amino acids and methionine. That could certainly compromise the methylation cycle. It could also compromise neurotransmitter production and function. When we disrupt sulfate synthesis and sulfate transport, well, that's a big deal because sulfate is needed by many aspects of our body, including what's actually happening in our digestive system. We have a layer that's needed to be produced that is supported by sulfate, which could lead to leaky gut. Glyphosate can also chelate certain minerals like iron, cobalt, and manganese. The metabolism of glyphosate can go down various pathways. One of the areas you can go is into formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is an aldehyde. Aldehydes tend to be very reactive chemicals in our body. In fact, many of the enzymes that are part of phase 1 liver detox are geared towards metabolizing aldehydes. But you'll notice another chemical here called glyoxylate. Glyoxylate can get formed in the presence of glyphosate. Glyoxylate can move in various ways. One of the areas it can go to is oxalate or oxalic acid. We know that oxalic acid is a risk factor long-term for kidney stones. It can also just form salts with calcium deposit into body tissue, connective tissue, joints, trigger inflammation, body pain. Oxalates can also bind to heavy metals like lead and mercury. It turns out there's a regulatory mechanism in our kidney that is geared around oxalate and sulfate transport. So this particular system, this SLC26A1, acts as an oxalate transporter and a sulfate transporter. So in the presence of high oxalate, what can end up happening is we certainly will release some of that oxalate if it's accumulating in the body, but it can also be reabsorbed. And the problem with this is that we lose or can lose sulfate in the process. So essentially, high oxalate load in the body can lead to a sulfate loss from the body. And we can start to think of all the different aspects where sulfate can work. This particular slide is really focusing on the metabolism of paracetamol, which is acetaminophen. And the metabolic breakdown of paracetamol or acetaminophen goes through different liver detoxification pathways, including sulfation. So sulfation plays a big role in phase 2, right? So phase 2 is sort of that final step in helping to convert things that moved over from a fat-soluble phase to a water-soluble phase. And we need sulfation to kind of help sort of either break down or finally convert things to be dumped out of the body. But also we can recycle a lot of compounds too. In fact, a lot of the things that our body produces, like neurotransmitters and hormones, will get broken down, but a lot of those components get recycled in our body, not entirely wasted. If we don't have good sulfation, we have poor phase 2 liver detoxification. We can see elsewhere in the body, we can have compromised aspects with regards to the methylation cycle, to neurotransmitter regulation, to even function within the gut and maintenance of healthy gut mucosal lining. For healthcare practitioners, we actually have a website that is a support website for healthcare practitioners for doing one-on-one lab consults, clinical troubleshooting, case presentations. We also have some educational videos. We have a forum that is in this website called functionalmedicineclinicalrounds.com. So if you ever are a practitioner who would like to interact with myself, Dr. Wohler, or my partner, Dr. Trecatella, regarding certain cases in practice, clinical troubleshooting, clinical pearls, lab reviews, check out functionalmedicineclinicalrounds.com. You can actually schedule one-on-one consults with us through the website. As I mentioned, we do have a series of videos. We've got webinars. We have an interactive forum as well. One of the other things in this website is we have something called clinical data sheets. These are one-page PDF downloadable documents of different lab tests or a lab marker that we provide on an ongoing basis. So there's actually a whole archive library of these downloadable clinical data sheets. If you have any additional questions about some of our courses, our mastery courses through Integrative Medicine Academy, we have very in-depth courses in functional medicine, courses on hormones, organic acid test interpretation, autism, candida, etc. The main website is integrativemedicineacademy.com. You can also email integrativemedicineacademy@gmail.com for any questions you have. Again, I'm Dr. Kurt Wooler for Integrative Medicine Academy. Thank you.